Welcome back to Addis Hub, your definitive source for stories shaping Ethiopia, our continent, and the global landscape. I am your host, Machal Tamrat, bringing you our comprehensive news roundup for Tuesday, July 14, 2026. We have packed broadcasting for you today, bridging historic domestic politics pivot with major international breakthroughs. Locally, Ethiopia's economic landscape has just shifted. Parliament has greenlit over 124 million euros in fresh European funding, while the National Bank of Ethiopia has executed a monumental monetary reform, completely lifting credit caps, lowering export surrenders requirements, but hiking interest rates to battle global oil-driven inflation surge. On the political front, we look at the rising stakes as national dialogue faces significant regional pushback. Then we widen our lenses to the world. We look at a landmark clean energy milestone and the UN's emergency climate mobilization. Across the continent, we bring you Nigeria's historic market boom, Senegal's constitutional court shutdown, and diplomatic thaw in the Sahel, plus we checking in humanitarian and legal sequences tightening around the conflict in Sudan. And finally, we dive into World Cup favors as a semi-finals kick-off in North America. We have packed broadcast for you today. Let's dive straight into the details. Parliament approves 124.6 million euro in concessional loans. Our top story today, Ethiopia's parliament has officially greenlit massive new financial backing from Europe. During its second extraordinary session held earlier today, the House of People's Representative unanimously approved two major concessional loan agreements worth combined 124.6 million euros. These funds, sourced from governments of Italy and France, are specifically embarked to fast-track Ethiopia's homegrown economic reform and accelerate the nation's digital transformation. Let's break down where this money is going. The first package is a 70 million euro loan from Italy. This will act a direct budget support under the World Bank's third Sustainable Growth and Development Policy operation. What makes this significant are incredibly generous, high concessional terms. The loan carries a 16 years grace period and a 30 repayment schedule with absolutely zero service charges. It is a long-term cashing to keep government's macroeconomic reform on track. The second package is a 54.6 million euro loan from France. This funding is set to modernize and digitalize Ethiopia's public administration, specifically targeting command and control as well as asset management system, with a 10 years grace period and a very low interest rate of just 0.347%. This is a critical step forward in reducing bureaucracy and expanding digital public service across the country. National Bank of Ethiopia's a major monetary policy pivot. Now let's turn to our economy, where the National Bank of Ethiopia has just executed a massive fundamental shift in how it manages the nation's money. In a landmark decision, Central Bank Governor Eyob Tekle announced that the National Bank of Ethiopia has completely lifted annual credit growth limit, commonly known as the credit cap on commercial banks. For years, the credit cap was used as a strict administrative tool to limit how much commercial banks could lend. In an effort to cool down the economy, according to Governor Yo, this was always meant to temporary breach. Now Ethiopia is officially transitioning to a modern market-friendly, interest-rate-based monetary system. But does this mean banks are free to flood the market with cheap cash? Absolutely not. To prevent this move from triggering massive inflation, the central bank has simultaneously hiked its benchmarks policy rate by 1 percentage point, bringing it to 16%. This is calculated double move. While banks have more freedom to allocate credit, borrowing money will now cost more. This comes as aiding inflation in Ethiopia ticked up to 13.4% in May, driven heavily by rising food and transport costs. The National Bank of Ethiopia is betting that This tighter interest rate framework, combined with strict government fiscal discipline, including a halt on direct borrowing from the central bank, will bring inflation back down to a single digit over the medium term. Remarkably, despite these tight measures, the central bank reports that Ethiopia's economy is highly resilient, projecting a double-digit GDP expansion over 10% for the current fiscal year, heavily supported by local manufacturing, agriculture, and energy sectors. The national dialogue and regional pushback. While economic gears are turning, the political landscape is facing a major test. On the eve of the commencement of Ethiopia's historic national dialogue, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed issued an impassioned call to all citizens, arguing them to unite. In the statement shared on social media, the Prime Minister called the dialogue defining national undertaking and the beginning of new chapter in our history, aimed at securing lasting peace and prosperity. However, the path of the national consensus has hit a major roadblock. The TPLF-led Tigray Regional State Administration has officially announced that it will not participate in the National Dialogue Forum. In a strong, ordered statement, regional authorities rejected the forum, citing deep-seated issues and alleging that the federal government is failing to uphold key aspects of the Pretoria Peace Agreement. This follows recent rhetoric where Tigrayan authorities accused the federal government for preparing for renewed military confrontation, a claim the federal side strongly denies. With Tigray opting out of the process, serious questions are being raised by political analysts about the overall inclusivity and effectiveness of the national dialogue for the process designed to heal historic wounds and building national consensus. The absence of a major regional stakeholder represents a significant challenge. World Bank's new strategy for Ethiopia. In other key economic news, the World Bank is fundamentally changing its playbook in Ethiopia. The multilateral lender has announced a strategic shift away from funding massive state-led public infrastructure projects. Instead, the World Bank new country partnership framework will focus heavily on private sector-led job creation. This is a profound change for Ethiopia, which for decades relied on public investment-led growth model, where the government built massive roads, dams, and industrial parks. Adding this to a shift, the World Bank has also decided to suspend investment in Ethiopia's tourism sector until conditions are more conducive. This marks direct divergence from the Prosperity Party's economic roadmap, which has long championed tourism as one of the five core pillars of national development. While the government continues to push tourism to drive long-term prosperity, international lenders are clearly signaling that the immediate priority must be structural reform, opening up the financial sectors and letting the private sector take the wheel. These developments mark highly critical juncture for Ethiopia. On one hand, we see bold modernized economic reform and fresh international backing. On the other, the nation continues to wrestling with deep regional political divisions that threaten the peace needed to sustain that very economic growth. Global energy milestone and El Nino warnings. Our lead story today highlights a monumental shift in the global fight against climate change, paired with stark warning about the immediate weather challenges ahead. The International Renewable Energy Agency released its high anticipated 2026 report today. The data reveals that renewable electric generation globally has shattered previous records, now accounting for 31.7% of the all power generated worldwide, fueled by a massive 9.6% surge in clean energy capacity over the past year. Renewables are expanding at their fastest rate in the history. Global leaders are hailing this as a proof that the clean energy transition is officially irreversible. However, even as the world builds greener future, the immediate climate realities remain severe. The United Nations has today announced it is mobilizing up to $100 million in the energy funds. Meteorological agencies warns that a newly developing record strength El Nino weather patterns is threatening to unleash catastrophic floods and extreme droughts. Vulnerable regions across Latin America, Southern and Eastern Africa, and Asia are bracing for severe climate disruptions. UN Emergency Relief Coordinator Tom Fletcher stressed that early funding is vital, stating we must invest in resilience now rather than wait for the disaster to strike. The African political and economic breakthroughs. Turning now to our continental coverage, we start in West Africa, where Nigeria's bold economic overhaul is yielding historical results. Following a series of aggressive economic and fiscal reform implemented by President Bola Tinubu, Nigeria's stock market has officially been named the world's best performing market. Global investors' confidence has surged, breathing fresh capital into the continent's largest economy. On the security front, Nigeria Force celebrated a major victory, successfully rescuing 46 abducted school children and teachers in Oyo State following highly coordinated military and intelligence operation. Meanwhile, in Senegal, a major constitutional clash has concluded. Senegal's highest judicial body has rejected a controversial constitutional amendment that sought to expand the power of parliament while rolling back presidential authority. This decision comes amidst growing political rivalry between President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and his former prime minister Osmane Sonko. Sonko has publicly accepted the court's ruling, calling it legally binding and de-escalating week of political tension. And a major diplomatic breakthrough has been reached in Sahel after more than a year of frozen relations and closed borders. Mali and Algeria has officially agreed to restore full diplomatic ties. Both nations have reinstated their ambassadors and reopened shared airspace, signaling a significant thaw in regional diplomacy. Escalating conflict and accountability in Sudan. We move to ongoing crisis in Sudan. Civil war has reached what the UN call the world's worst humanitarian emergency. Over 40 million people have now been displaced, and civilian casualties are estimated to have passed 59,000, compounding the violence. Deadly cholera outbreaks are sweeping through the displacement camps, with over 1,300 confirming cases. But today we are seeing a dramatic shift towards international accountability. In historic move, the European Parliament passed a resolution calling on the European Union to officially designate the Parliament Rapid Support Forces as a terrorist organization. This comes as a senior official from the International Criminal Court confirming breakthrough in their Darfur investigations, successfully linking top RSF leaders directly to actions bearing the hallmark of the genocide. Simultaneously, Sudan's court has sentenced RSF commander Mohammed Dagalo, widely known as Ahmediti, a death in absentia for war crimes. While the physical conflict ranges on the ground, the legal and international ladies fighting around the warning factions. FIFA World Cup semi-final kick-off. Finally, we turn the world of sports, where the planet's biggest tournament is entering its absolute climax. Out of the 48 nationals that set out in the historic journey across North America, only four remaining standing. Tonight and tomorrow, the semi-final of 2026 FIFA World Cup will decide who gets play for immortality at the New Jersey Stadium this coming Sunday. The action kick off tonight in Dallas with the absolute blockbusters France versus Spain. It is a battle of European titans, with Kylian Mbappe's Les Blues looking to secure their place in the historic third consecutive World Cup final. Then tomorrow night, the drama moves to Atlanta for The second semi-final, England versus Argentina. Lionel Messi and the defending champions have had grueling road, surviving a dramatic extra-time quarter-final against Switzerland. They now face formidable England squad that hungry to bring the trophy home. For giants, two matches and one ultimate prize, the world is watching. From global climates pivotal of historic legal battles and the World Cup fever, the world is moving incredibly fast today. But we want to hear from you, the Addis Hub community. How do you feel about the National Bank lifting the credit cap, the raising interest rates? Do you think this will successfully curb inflation in your day-to-day lives? And what your thoughts on Tigray's decision to opt out of the national dialogue? Can a national dialogue be truly successful without all regions at the table? And who is your money on the World Cup? Will Messi's Argentina go back to back, or is it a time for European to reclaim the crown? Let us know your thoughts in the comment sections below. If you found this comprehensive breakdown valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to Addis Hub, and turn on the notification bell so you will never miss an update on the stories that matter most of our community. Thank you for watching. I am Mitchell Tamrat, and this is Addis Hub. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.